We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how are you?
I mean, I'm doing pretty good. I had a Friendsgiving, like things outside of football are pretty good. So no, that was great. Uh, Other than that, I didn't really do anything with the extra no Bengals weekend. I watched football on Sunday still. I didn't. Some people like don't watch any football in those weeks. I'm a big fan of the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up watching the Steelers and Commanders games, and I didn't really watch too much of that 4 o'clock window when everything was a blowout. But yeah. So what did you do with your extra time this weekend? Anything
It's
fun?
funny. It's funny you say that because every time somebody asks me how I'm doing, I say, life, enjoy it. Good. Life I like. Football, not so much. Not going so well. So I always kind of have to say the two different scenarios going on right now. But yeah, I watch football. I definitely was really bummed on Thursday night. And then going into Friday, I thought, nah, I'm not going to let that game impact my long weekend. I had Friday off. I'm going to enjoy it outside of football. And then I was sucked right back into it for college football and the NFL. And those 1 o'clock games were absolutely crazy. We'll talk about those a little bit later because they do connect with where the Cincinnati Bengals are, even though they did have Sunday off. But man, just a little bit going back to the Thursday night football game. A Ravens fan actually asked me and said, which one was harder when you watched it as a loss? And I said it had to be Thursday night football because despite being they had the lead in both games, had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of the home game. Thursday night football, you're up 21-7. Chase Brown fumble and the momentum just flipped like a switch. And that Thursday night football game was the one that I feel like is the toughest loss for me right now when I think about where the Cincinnati Bengals are. It was one of those games where you had to have it. You had to get one against the Baltimore Ravens. You were in control of it, and they just couldn't finish. Mike, what were some of your thoughts on that game?
So large thought is it's easy to figure out why the Bengals lost that game, and it's
Mhm.
nothing like minute or anything like that. For me, the reason they lost the game is simply Marlon Humphrey forced a fumble and they recovered it, and Cam Taylor Britt dropped the interception. Like that's it. That's it. Because if he catches an interception, the Bengals win. It's just the turnover. When you're in a game that close, that narrow of a margin of victory, you can point to a whole lot of stuff. Like they couldn't bring Lamar down, even if they got some pressure. Time to throw was huge for him. It was well above 3. So, like getting pressure in those scenarios is more like Lamar's inviting the pressure and then just making you look silly for the most part. Except Sam Hubbard. He didn't get there to look silly because he didn't get there. But everybody else got there and looked a little silly when you make the miss, including Trey Hendrickson. So like that's frustrating, and like not making that 2-point conversion is frustrating. I think that's the right call. I don't know where you stand on it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, because I've actually seen the analytics people were like, yeah, it was a toss up for us. I was
No,
like,
no, no.
that's one of those situations where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to trust like the game flow in this situation where they hadn't gotten a stop since the first half, it felt like. And you're going to, trust that your defense can hold up and for 30 seconds for a field goal, because that's happening either way. But like, I'd rather be in a position to win. It's not a guarantee that you kick that and you go to OT and it's a 50-50. Like you got to factor in the possibility that the Ravens just pick up 30 yards and Tucker hits a game winner with no time left. B, that offense was unstoppable. Like 50-50 feels generous, where I felt better about the Ravens offense scoring than I did about the Bengals offense scoring at that point in the game. I just feel like you got to draw something up that's not to Tanner Hudson, but I felt like it also pointed to a larger issue of they don't have a quick underneath guy, and that was supposed to be Charlie Jones, and it's not. That's not Burton's game. He's more of a vertical threat. That's not Yosivas's game, although he has been used there as well. So it ended up being Hudson as the slot guy because Gesicki's your other slot, and he's just getting hammered and not a part of the read. I don't like that the read started. It looked like a play that went right to left. Like he would read, Yoshi if he's wide open, but that's like the alert. Hudson, Gesicki, then Jamar. Like it felt like Jamar was the last option in the progression to go right, left, left. I didn't like that. And Jamar did get open. I would rather you found a way to go Jamar and then work your other way, but I don't know. I can't complain too much about the offense because it was really the defense that was a disaster, and it's what's been all year. But every time they play a competent quarterback, that's why I wasn't really moved by this game. I understand some people are like big movements from this game. I wasn't moved by the Raiders game at all. I was like, yeah, that's what you should do if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to be a playoff team. And then I wasn't moved by this game. I was like, yeah, like this is what they've been all year. What do you mean? Like they lose a close game to a good team? Yeah, that's what they've been all year. This is the game that could move me, the one coming up, and we'll talk about that more later in the week. But the Chargers, that's a team that's a similar level than you. They're also a team that's like, yeah, they're a fringe playoff team. So you beat them, I'm in. You're a fringe playoff team. You lose, who cares anymore? Like you're at the point of, could you squeak into the playoffs by winning out? Like I just stopped caring at that point, unless it gets to like week 17 and they did win out up to that point. They got to play the Broncos for that final spot. Then I'll care. And I'm going to the week 18 game. So I hope there's something at stake there. But yeah, overall thoughts. I just think like it's very easy to figure out how they lost that game. And it's just the 2 turnovers. Like those are the pivotal plays to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And offensively, when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have a performance like that and you lose the game, it's so unfortunate because the next day, all I wanted to do was watch Joe and Jamar highlights because it was absolutely incredible. And when you put that performance on, Joe Burrow's had several of them this year that they've lost. It is very frustrating. And I can't even I don't know how Joe even feels, even though obviously he talks to the media afterwards. But you even go back to that first game against the Ravens. He had 5 touchdowns. I mean, it's just absolutely insane when you have that quarterback play in the NFL and you do not win games. That is extremely disappointing. And look, there might be a scapegoat, and maybe it's not even a scapegoat when you look at the defensive side of the ball. Yes, players need to execute. Yeah, Geno Stone, maybe you should push the player out of bounds instead of trying to make the tackle there. That could have been a difference in the game with the Tyler Wallace touchdown. But overall, defense, it's pitiful. It's absolutely pitiful. It's gross because of the offensive performance we're seeing on the other side of the ball. Joe Burrow's offensive line did him no favors, and that's a whole nother conversation, the way Joe's taking hits and his offensive line is not standing up for him. If they're not going to protect him, they should at least stand up to him. But other than that, offensively, it is very frustrating to see the performances we are seeing in these games against good teams, and the defense can't even close out. Yes, the defense had a really good first half. Really impressed with what they were able to do, but you have to put it together for 4 quarters or it's nothing. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the first half. They care about the ending, and it's really disappointing because you win that game, man. This season, it's one win, but it just feels like a confidence booster as you have this big game going against the Chargers coming up. They get a bye right before they play the Steelers at home. But to put yourself in this big of a hole, even though the AFC isn't the strongest for some of these bottom teams fighting for a wild card spot, it's just really disappointing because Joe and Jamar Chase are playing on a whole nother level right now.
Yeah. So, that offensive line, the 2 guards were terrible. Cody Ford was what Cody Ford has pretty much been, not good. And Mims didn't have a great game either on the other side. So the only guy I thought played all right was Karras, but I also didn't feel like Karras was really that tested either. It's not like they're lining up Matabike head up over him and trying to win, because why bother? You got Matabike or Travis Jones against one of the 2 guards, and those guards will be flat on their back within 2.5 seconds in that matchup. It's sad to watch that, and I don't know how they fix it because they just don't value the guard position. If they get something that resembles NFL level play from a player, they're not going to spend resources to try to fix it, and they're not in the business of trying to put Matt Lee in there and switch Karras over, which I'm mixed on anyway, just because Matt Lee didn't look ready as a run blocker in the preseason. But oh man, I can't imagine it'd be worse in pass protection than those 2 guards. So yeah, there's a lot of thoughts on the offense, but I think it'll look better when Higgins comes back, and it's already looking very good. I'm struggling to blame parts of the offense for this game, even though like the NFL is essentially a quarterback, we say it's a quarterback-driven league. I think it's just quarterbacks anymore. Like that's all people really talk about. Anything else that's involved in these games doesn't matter. It's did the quarterback win the game or they lose the game? And then you'll just build your take off of that rather than having the take by watching the game and seeing what comes out of it.
I mean, the topic of a discussion nationally today is about Caleb Williams. And it's about quarterback play and how 2 quarterbacks play in any game. And it's just really unfortunate that we don't get to talk about that matchup more and what Joe's been able to do, because he wins that game. I would say, and look, he still has that opportunity, because if Joe is able to continue what he's doing right now with this offense and they find a way in the playoffs then yeah, you've got to think of him as that underdog MVP offensive player candidate. But obviously, you have the top dogs over the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs and other teams overall in the NFL. But what Joe's been able to do, it's just really unfortunate. I saw one of the PFF guys, not with PFF anymore, Steve. He had put Joe Burrow would be an MVP candidate if they had maybe one or two different wins. Trey Hendrickson, a defensive player of the year candidate. And you would even say that Jamar could be an offensive player of the year candidate with the way he's playing. And they're 4-6 on the season. And it's just really unfortunate. And when you flip to the defensive side, Lou Anarumo talked to the media this week, and he believes in Joseph Ossai, and that's what it's going to look like. Is Joseph Ossai getting more reps than Myles Murphy? I know you have a great piece on Myles Murphy up on Bengals Talk right now. How do you feel about those decisions?
So it's a long discussion. It starts with Myles Murphy's knee injury. It seems like statistically it affected him quite a bit. When you look at the first 3 weeks back from the injury, his first 3 weeks, he had about a 0.92 get off. His pressure percentage was 9.5%, which is bad. Those are both bad numbers. They're both below average. But he's getting 21 pass rushes a game, no quick pressures, 3.12 for his time to pressure. Then you look at the last 3 weeks, 0.75 get off, which is fast as Trey Hendrickson getting off the ball. He has 6 pressures just like the first weeks, but I don't think any of those were unblocked. 24% pressure percentage, 2.97 time to pressure, but he's only getting 8 pass rushes a game. That's great production. 24% pressure percentage over the last 3 weeks. That's higher than Trey Hendrickson's. Now, like, granted, Hendrickson gets more attention, all the things going on. He's not a better player, better pass rusher than Trey Hendrickson, but he's, to me, the last 3 weeks, clearly the second best pass rusher on the team. You look at Joseph Ossai, I think that's the third best pass rusher on the team. So, like, I'm not that mad about it. 0.86 get off, which is about league average. You're getting 13 pass rushes a game, pressure percentage of 18%, and he's getting a lot of passing down snaps. He's got 25 passing down snaps, which is the second most after Hendrickson over the last 3 weeks. Myles Murphy has 12. And then I feel like Lou said that, but the elephant in the room is Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard's get off right now is over 1, which is about a defensive tackles. He's getting 13 2/3 pass rushes a game. He's got 2 pressures over the last 3 weeks. But he has 19 snaps that came on passing downs. So I'm saying passing downs, I mean first and extra long, second and long, or third and medium or longer. So like those are traditionally, you've got like a 75% chance this can be a pass. You're probably firing off the ball. The 4.88 pressure percentage. Compare that to Murphy, 24 to 4.8. It's a little bit ridiculous that like the albatross of the room is Sam Hubbard. Like, yeah, say Joseph Ossai has played really well. He deserves more, which I also think if you're talking about his run defense, Andrew Russell brought up a great point from Twitter. Myles Murphy has more positively graded plays in the run game, which leads to the point of like, is it better to just be there and never do anything positive or negative, or to have ups and downs as a run defender? Clearly, Anarumo, and I think this was true back when they signed Hill over Ogunjobi. Ogunjobi made crazy plays sometimes, but he'd also give up some plays. That's what Murphy is right now. I don't think that's what Murphy's always going to be, but right now, he's a guy that uses his get off and explosion to go make a play in the backfield, get a tackle for a loss, but he also makes mistakes because he's not seeing the field. That's the big part to me. It's like he's not seeing the field, so how's he going to get better with some of this stuff? So I don't know why he went from getting 21 pass rushes a game to 8. And over those last 3 weeks where he's getting 8 pass rushes a game, he's clearly your second best pass rusher. It's crazy to me. And the Sam Hubbard one is just insane. You are burning a pass rusher on passing downs by putting Sam Hubbard out there. He should be run downs only. He is still a good run defender, but he is not anything as a pass rusher at the moment. 19 snaps on pass rushing downs is insane considering Murphy has 12. Ossai, he's getting plenty. He's got 25. I think that also helps his numbers a little bit. We're talking about that's why I think Murphy is the better pass rusher between the two, because Ossai is getting used as a DPR, designated pass rusher, a little bit. Hubbard is just, you don't have anybody on the interior that's getting pressure except BJ Hill. like Sheldon Rankins has a 2% pressure percentage. Chris Jenkins is around a 2% pressure percentage. McKinley Jackson's actually up at 11, but I also know some of that's unblocked stuff. So, like, is it translatable? I don't know. But I also am kind of on team, like, get McKinley on the field on these pass rushing downs too. Because the biggest issue I have with this defense right now is there's nobody outside of Trey Hendrickson that's getting pressure. And it feels that way because you're playing Hendrickson and Rankins so much right now. These guys are just nothing as pass rushers at the moment. So if you want to chip Hendrickson and you want to slide to Hill and you're going to force a guy with a 4.8 or a 2% pressure percentage, guys with like one pressure, two pressures over the past 3 weeks to apply that pressure and force mistakes from the quarterback to sack the quarterback, that time to throw is going to be huge. It's not hard to figure this out. When Murphy gets his one-on-ones, every one-on-one on Thursday, he won. He beat Roger Rosengard on all 3 of his one-on-one opportunities and forced Lamar off of his spot. Sam Hubbard, he didn't do that once. He had a 0% pass rush win rate. Like, I'm just talking all the stats here, but like, it's mind-boggling that like the question was, hey, why isn't Miles Murphy on the field? And he goes to Joseph Osai. Joseph Osai should be seeing the field more than Hubbard too. When the big issue is Sam Hubbard, an aging defensive player who, if you follow the same way you did Mixon, should be cut or traded this offseason.
Yes.
Because it doesn't make sense that he's stifling your young talent. And I know that defensive coaches in the NFL, one of the biggest myths is that these guys are going to develop people. This is true about offensive line coaches, defensive coaches. They're not in the business of developing people. I know it sucks to say,
They're
but
not.
most like 90% of them do not care about development. You get that in the offseason and through playing time, experience, whatever else. They're in the business of trying to put the best product on the field that they can, the best production that they can. The issue for me is I think your best production would be Hubbard off the field on anything that resembles a passing down. He should be treated like a nose tackle at this point. Still useful, but you can't be lighting one of your 4 pass rushers on fire every time you go out there. Just why? Because you've always liked him because he defends the run well. That's great that somebody defends the run well. You got to pull them off the field when they don't produce 10 weeks into the season.
You talk about developing guys, and I feel like it is a failure to have Miles Murphy not out there because you want to see your younger guys. And here's the thing. Before the trade deadline. Joseph Osai was producing, would have been the perfect opportunity. And I know he's good to trade him to a team, get another player that you can plan on extending because you are not going to extend Joseph Osai. We didn't see him for 3 years. He had injuries, but we're finally seeing him. He's producing. He has a few games left with the Cincinnati Bengals. Why not turn that around, get a player that you could possibly extend, maybe even younger, even though Joseph Osai is still pretty young for his age on the defensive side of the ball. He's on his rookie contract, and flip that. And they decided not to do that. And look, I know it takes 2 teams to make a trade and the trade deadline is over. Then you bring up Sam Hubbard. I think that is a perfect name and argument because I agree with you, not to get too far into the Joe Mixon, Jonah Williams type of conversations that I felt like we've had for years. But I agree, those conversations should be had about Sam Hubbard. How much money is he making? A lot of money on the defensive side of the ball.
More than Reeder.
Yeah, he's not producing at all. He looks like he's in quicksand every time he's out there. So I agree with you. If it's a passing play, make that change. Put your younger guy out there. Get Miles Murphy out there. If the numbers are showing that he's producing, it is a failure on the defensive side. It is a failure from Lou Anarumo. It's a failure on their defensive line coach. It's a failure as an organization not to have your first round pick out there because you already botched the Dax Hill stuff. Then you finally found a spot for him. Now he's out for the year with an injury. And again, injuries are hard to predict. They happen. They're out of your control. Then you're doing the same thing with this Miles Murphy situation. You look at these other teams. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Look how many of their younger guys on the defensive side of the ball are out there making an impact. All of that is extremely important. I don't care how much money you made. That conversation is going to be for the offseason because you've got to do something different with that contract. Just because he's a Cincinnati kid, he's done really great things there. I need players out there who are going to win. And right now your defense isn't winning. So why not make that move? Why not get Miles out there more? And it should be about winning football games versus putting the bet out there. It is absolutely frustrating because we've talked about it before. The lack of pass rush outside of Trey Hendrickson that they currently do have is a domino effect to everything else. Linebacker play, the secondary, Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, there's discussions of, should you bench the guy? because he's not producing, but I think it all is impacted by your pass rush too. It's just so frustrating. I get so frustrated thinking about the defensive side of the ball. It's because of what I'm seeing on offense. That's why. If it was just a down year and everybody was playing bad, I'd be like, all right, that's a wash. Season's over. It's really unfortunate that they just really couldn't get it going on both sides of the ball. And you have the performance we're seeing on offense, and the defense, they can't do anything. It's an embarrassment.
Yeah, and I mean, like, some of the things they're doing, it's like if they brought in Yannick Ngakoue, what do you think actually happens? Do you think that this becomes a pass rushing rotation of Hendrickson Murphy, Osai, and Ngakoue? No. It would be Hendrickson, Hubbard, then you've Ngakoue into the Osai role and have Murphy as your fourth edge in the Cedric Johnson role. Like, that's not a fix.
No.
That's not a fix long term. That's not a fix at all. It's just egregious usage of these players to me. Yeah, you believe in the talent in the building. Cool. Use them. Because the talent in the building, like, when guys start not performing and they're this old, it doesn't magically click and they start performing again. Like, Sam Hubbard had a great career as a pass rusher. He's still a heck of a run defender, but you don't know when passes are coming, obviously. Like, if you could predict every time a team would throw the ball, you'd be much better defense. But there are traditional passing downs, and you can make the switch. Make the switch. Just pull him off the field. If they get a run stop on first down, get him off the field and put Murphy or even Osai out there. But you have to know what's in Murphy, because even if you think Osai is the same level player, Osai, like you said, is gone after this year. Maybe they couldn't trade him, whatever, and get something out of that. Murphy is here the next 3 years. And you brought up Dax Hill. That's a great comparison. You didn't know Dax, at least for Lou, couldn't shake it at safety until year 2. Then you're trying him at corner year 3. Looks like he can play there. Now he's hurt. Now you're in year 4. You have to make the decision on his 5th-year option this offseason. They're going to decline it. There's no way you accept that because they don't know what they have in him. You can't do that with these draft picks. You can't do that with Murphy. You can't get into year 4 and then he's finally going to start and you're like, well, I don't know what we have in him, so I couldn't accept the 5th-year option. That's how you lose guys that are talented too. So you got to see what you have. At the very least, you have to see what you have, because this defense, it really can't get much worse than it currently is. And knock on wood, it can't get much worse, at least against decent teams. They get masked because they can defend the run a little bit, and these very bad quarterbacks will go in there and put up 7 points. Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew, Watson, etc. These guys stink, and they go out there and they make this defense look good for a week. But anytime they play a quarterback who's got a little bit to him, they're giving up 30. They're giving up 30, and it looks disastrous. It's not just that they give up 30 and you're seeing high-level throws. You're seeing a lot of open guys. You're seeing missed tackles. You're seeing no pressure. When you play a competent team, that's what happens. And I think the Chargers are a competent team.
Yes.
So I think you've got to make the move, because this is the season for them. If you lose this game, I think it's very reasonable to say they're out. And wow, you wasted a Joe Burrow MVP season. So you got to see what you have in Murphy. And he's producing. Like, this would be one thing if he was going out there and stinking it up. But when he's giving you a 24% pressure percentage, highest on the team the last 3 weeks, and you can't get him on the field, and you're not going to bring up the guy that he couldn't beat a backup tackle. And like, Sam Hubbard got to face DJ Glaze all game. He didn't get him. He got to face Rosengarten. He didn't get him once. These guys that are very gettable. Now you're going to play against Joe Alt, and you think Sam Hubbard's doing anything? I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if he did anything in this game as a pass rusher. Might be a solid run defender, but I'd be surprised about anything as a pass rusher for him in this game. So I'm going a little insane seeing this, and I think it's just one of those situations of it's frustrating that an NFL coach is going to do what he thinks is best, but only in run defense. He's just one-track mind, and probably has the mind of, oh, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. Sam Hubbard's earning that right, but doing nothing with it. So maybe you need to earn the right to rush the passer should mean you should win a couple pass rushes to earn the right to be able to rush the passer.
Yeah. It's very frustrating. It's very, very, very frustrating, and it doesn't get easier for them when they do face Justin Herbert. And obviously, we'll get to that matchup later in the week. The Cincinnati Bengals did make a little bit of news this week, a little bit, because it was very quick, almost like a drive-through when it comes to a visit. Xavien Howard was in for a visit on Monday. Leonard Fournette was also in and thought maybe the Bengals will add to their secondary. I will say Locked On, if you have their subscriber text, I did get a text before we recorded tonight, and it sounds like rumors were that the Bengals offered Xavien a spot on the practice squad, and he wanted a roster spot on the 53-man, and obviously decided to go back home and train versus joining the Cincinnati Bengals at 31 and currently not on a team.
Just feels like he'll stay unemployed. Like some people are ripping the Bengals for this, but for me, if I'm Xavien Howard, do you think he really wouldn't get a chance to play? Because Cam Taylor-Britt's been awful, and I know that stings because they thought they were going to pay him.
No,
soon. Not anymore. You can't do it now. So I mean, that's the guy to me that would be getting benched, not DJ Turner. Between the two of them. You think Cam Taylor-Britt's not going to screw up again? Like, I would put my money on that. Go sign the practice squad. You're on the couch. You are on the couch, and it's week 10. Who do you think is calling? I mean, look, do whatever you want. Maybe he just has too much pride, and I get that. But look, Xavien Howard, he's A, not what he used to be, and B, he hasn't had an opportunity come to him in 10 weeks. I don't know what other opportunities are coming for him, but I can't imagine it's much. Maybe you get some type of season-ending injury to a playoff team's corner, and that's what he's waiting for, banking on that. If it was me, I think I would have signed and tried to make an NFL roster if I was serious about it.
Yeah, and that would have been the perfect opportunity. You show other teams what you can do if you were going to start in place of Cam Taylor-Britt, because I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't have been surprised if that move from practice squad, if that's what happened, to the 53 active roster would have happened immediately. I truly do think that, and maybe those conversations didn't happen. It was want to lose former guys. He's talked about him plenty. I do remember when T. Higgins, I think, burnt him on Thursday Night Football, so I always kind of have that image in my brain. And then Leonard Fournette, I don't look.
You know a team's desperate when you hear the Leonard Fournette visit.
Playoff Lenny. Playoff Lenny.
Lombardi Lenny.
Lombardi Lenny. Yeah, hey, look, he has a trophy, so I should say maybe his vibes would be good for the Cincinnati Bengals. They brought him in really quick on Monday, and it just didn't work out. And that's where the Cincinnati Bengals are right now. And it's one of those things. I tweeted it yesterday, and I said, look, people are going to be frustrated with not signing Howard and obviously Fournette, because those are big names when you think about it. Those were names the Bengals had interest in 2017. That they liked Leonard Fournette, which is absolutely crazy. We're in 2024, almost 2025. That's almost a decade ago that they've had an interest in a player and they brought him back. But for me, overall, the depth should have been added during training camp. It should have been added during free agency. And those injuries that they were dealing with going into training camp and everything else, that's when you bring in guys. That's when you possibly make the trade. You can make a trade before the deadline. They didn't even make one at the deadline besides obviously Khalil Herbert. But overall, I just felt like it was roster mismanagement. I'm not surprised from their front office, but it's just, I don't know. It's desperate. I'm disappointed with where they're at right now. And you see Campbell over there on Monday Night Football at 38 years old, proving to a lot of teams, hey, I can still play football. And you know what? He'd probably be one of the best defensive players along with Trey Hendrickson on the defensive side of the ball right now.
Yeah, if they had anybody else on that interior, I mean, Jenkins can do an okay job stuffing the run. McKinley Jackson's a roller coaster, but when it's just BJ Hill, it's tough. And I've been trying to give grace to Rankins, like, he's injured, whatever else. Like, it's too late, man. 2% pressure rate, and you're in week 10. Yeah, he's not seeing the second year of that deal. And it looks especially dumb to me as a big DJ Reader guy that you went out and you signed this guy as your pass rusher. He gets you a 2% pressure rate. DJ Reader's out there winning ball games for the Detroit Lions. You've got two guys you pay just as much on this defensive line, if not more, in Hubbard and Rankins, and they're doing diddly squat for you, besides stuffing a first-round pick deep down the depth chart where he can't get the snaps that he should be getting. I don't know what else to do at this point. Like, they're not producing. You got to make the change eventually, because these older players, when they show you that they are older, they don't find the fountain of youth. I was really struggling to find that phrase. Other than I guess maybe Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, quarterbacks are different. Like that stuff happens. Oh, and Randy Moss, but that was the
It's Randy
Raiders were
Moss.
so the Raiders were so stinky that he just didn't want to play. Like I believe I heard reports that like Kerry Collins was like mad at him because he wasn't running routes the way Kerry Collins like hey Kerry, that's Randy Moss. How about you adjust what you're doing? Like you're Kerry Collins and that's Randy Moss. But anyway, very frustrating Cincinnati Bengals, but they're still alive.
Let's talk about that. We'll end the podcast with a quick state of the AFC. And again, you mentioned it before. This game on Sunday, it just feels like I think I've mentioned it several times. Big Cat from Barstool said he ranks NFL teams every week, and he said the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tampa Bay Bucks are teams that you still believe in, but they lose every game that they need to win. And that's where the Cincinnati Bengals are right now. And I truly believe that this is a huge game coming up against the Chargers. We'll break it down later this week. But when you look at the state of the AFC, it is absolutely crazy to me. And look, they have a lot of games to win before I even think of, woo, they would be dangerous in the AFC wild card. But hey, if they do enough to get in, you get 9 or 10 wins, which I still think it's going to be, you need 10 wins and you can only drop one more, maybe 2 more, but you don't want to do that. Obviously coming up on Sunday Night Football, that would be a hot team. They would maybe have something on the not a better defense, but enough to stop people and anything is possible. Obviously the last team you'd want to face if you were the second seed on a wild card round and the Cincinnati Bengals are coming to town at that last seed, just the way they are offensively. But I'm not sure if you watched the end to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Broncos game, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, that's a missed opportunity. That really just hurts the Bengals even more. Broncos are about to win this game. You're sitting there watching it and you're like, man, it's painful to say I want the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. Could not believe that happened. To give the Cincinnati Bengals hope, there is still a chance they could get in because of that missed kick against the Kansas City Chiefs. And credit to the special teams. The Colts falling badly to the Buffalo Bills. And I think Dan Orlovsky said it best. He said, hey, there's going to be about 3 spots left, or there's going to be 1 spot left in the wild card because it's probably going to be the Chargers or Pittsburgh, or it's going to be the Ravens and the Chargers who take that final spot, depending on how the last few games of the season go. But there's that 1 spot. And he said, I would put Cincinnati, Broncos, or the Colts for that position to take that spot. And you look at the schedules, you look at who the Colts are playing. Denver, Bo Nix is playing pretty good football. They have a really good defense. Cincinnati Bengals, opportunities, a tough one coming up against the Chargers. You have 2, you need to split. I would say you need to split with Pittsburgh. Get one of those at least. You get a bye before you take them at home. Cowboys are falling off now. Thought that was going to be a big game on Monday Night Football. Their quarterback's out for the season. Their defense is struggling. You get the Browns one more time. Huge tiebreaker against the Broncos. And you're right back in the Titans. And you're right back in it.
Yeah, you talked about caring about those games. I'll be honest. Until they beat like a Chargers team, I don't care. Like I don't have the energy to get worked up about the Broncos possibly beating the Chiefs when I'm watching the Bengals and they're like,
you're right.
They don't look like a playoff team at the moment. I do think, like the very basics of you probably don't want to play a top 3, 5, whatever quarterback in the playoffs as a 7th seed. Like that just feels like upset recipe where that team sneaks in there, even if the defense stinks. And as much as we've harped on Lou, always put together good game plans in the playoffs. So like I think the game plan would at least be good. Can the guys execute it? I don't know. I don't have faith in that. But if you're the Bills and you got stomped by this team a couple years ago at home, you want that as a 2nd seed. If you're the Ravens, you just won 2 games by the slimmest of margins against this team. Do you want that? And if you're the Chiefs, it's the only team that's beaten you. So do you want that? Again, do you want that? So I don't know. Where I am on it is just, I don't know if the Chargers are locked in yet. And I would also say Dolphins sneaky. They won that game. They've got a couple easy ones coming up. If they can pull those out, they get to 5 and 6. That's a little sneaky. It's just like Dolphins, don't count them out completely, especially if 9 wins get you to because in my brain, 10 wins get you in. And I think with 9, you need the tiebreakers. If you have the tiebreakers at 9 wins, you get in. Whether that's a head-to-head tiebreaker, if there's a 3-team tie, I will need to brush up on that. But I think it's your conference record, maybe division record. and get you in. So that's just a quick look around. I mean, like the Colts have some easy schedule, but I have no faith in them. I have no faith in the Colts being some team that actually gets into the playoffs. If they do, man, other teams are going to be celebrating that is the team that got in there. Because I think the Broncos, the defense will at least scare you, even if you don't think the quarterback's going to do it, or the offense, I should say, is going to do it to you. I don't know. I do think the Bengals would be the scariest, but I also think for like neutral observers, they just kind of brush off how bad the defense is.
Yes.
I mean, it's terrible. Like it's to the point where that would be the thing is like what I would expect in a playoff game is for them to score 30 points and lose.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's going right now. You could tell me, you have told me going into that Ravens game, the Bengals put up 34 points. I would have said the Ravens put up 35.
Yeah, basically. That's where we are. I mean, I won't do that next week. If the Bengals put up 34 points against the Chargers, I expect to win. Just because the Chargers offense hasn't been a 30-point per game monster, although I think it does have the ability to do so. Mm-hmm. But yeah, against the Ravens, I'm kind of like, yeah, you kind of need 40 in this game with how bad this defense is. And that was with holding them to 7 points in the first half. They still gave up 35. That's incredible performance from a defense.
Absolutely crazy. And only thing, and I'll end the whole recap of everything of where they are right now. The only thing that I kept reminding myself on after that game is, you know what? They would have probably got the 2-point conversion, and then the Ravens would have marched right down the field with like 25
Justin
seconds
Tucker,
and hit the game winner. I mean, I was like, it wouldn't have been like, oh, they won the game. There's going to be some crazy ending to this. Because if you were an NFL fan just liking football, you loved that game. It was insane. Mm-hmm. Absolutely insane. It would have been easier if they would have won. I would have enjoyed it even more, but it was an incredible football game between two teams. Just unfortunate one had to lose. But yeah, a huge game. I actually look forward to talking about this matchup on Sunday Night Football for Joe and Justin Herbert. Should be a good one at SoFi. Hopefully a better outcome at SoFi since the last time they've been there. And we'll see what happens. Make sure you check out Mike's piece. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Myles Murphy. He has it over on Bengals Talk. You can check out his tweets over on Bengals_Sands. You can follow me at Ellen Diaz Patterson. And thank you for listening too. It's always game day in Cincinnati.